Serious games. Deep in the Ear Valley, on Japan's smallest island of Shikoku, the snow was swirling furiously. A silver four-wheel drive, barely visible as it manoeuvred gingerly through the snow, approached a remote farmhouse surrounded by forest. Onmitsu Kaito had driven himself to this meeting from Tokyo in order to be as far from being overheard, traced or followed as was possible for him to be. He had no phone and had purchased no flights or train tickets. He had hired the vehicle using a false ID. Kaito stopped directly in front of the farmhouse, noting a black four-wheel drive was already parked at the side of the house. There was barely an hour or two of light left, and he wanted to get this meeting done quickly so he wouldn't have to navigate back in the pitch dark. Kaito trudged through the already thick snow and biting wind to the stone steps leading up to the house. As per instructions he'd been provided with, he found the hiding place for the key and entered the minka, removing his shoes and brushing the white flakes from his hair and heavy grey coat. The sound of the blizzard faded as he entered and made his way to the zashiki, the main room at the centre of the structure, inhaling the scent of cedarwood. The House of the Flute had been lovingly restored over decades. It had become an attraction for travellers and volunteers who participated in the restorations. But with essential safety renovations planned towards the end of winter, the entire site had been closed to visitors for months. The hearth in the central room cast a warm, golden glow over the polished wooden beams, the thatch roof ceiling, the shoji screens at one end of the room, a samurai banner that hung across the width of the room at the other end, and the two men already seated around the aurori hearth. "I am Onmitsu Kaito, director of the TIA," said Kaito, bowing to the men, who were sipping tea from a cast iron pot that hung over the orange embers of the hearth. They did not rise to greet him. Kaito grimaced, as he noted that neither of them had removed their footwear. "Kerr, MI6, offered the sandy-haired man in a Northern English accent. Kaito tilted his head slightly. What interest did MI6 have in this? "David Adams, Malvern Media," said the dark-haired man with the closely cropped beard, as he motioned for him to sit down. He spoke in an American accent. Settling cross-legged on the flat cushions around the fireplace, Kaito accepted a cup of steaming green tea. "We are an offshoot of the Serious Games Institute, which was established in Coventry University, Britain," began Adams. That might explain the MI6 presence, thought Kaito. "Serious games? Sounds quite a contradiction in terms," he said to Adams. He sipped the tea, feeling its warmth thaw the chill that had permeated his bones. Adams' grey-blue eyes smiled. "It seems that way. Serious games are those that seek to help people learn or shift human behaviour by harnessing game dynamics. My organisation develops what we call mission-critical games, those that can help humanity address complex problems or overcome barriers that are vital to civilisation continuing." Kaito nodded slowly. "How may I help you?" he asked. Adams gave Kerr a look. Kerr got up and produced a packet of cigarettes from underneath his thick wool jacket, then went out into the freezing air. "The American is calling the shots here," observed Kaito. "Your organisation seeks to create shifts in perception, yes?" asked Adams. "We do many things. However, the nature of our work is such that if it is to succeed, it must remain concealed," replied Kaito. The hearth embers crackled and popped. Adams looked intently at Kaito, turning his teacup around and around in his hands. "What use might the TIA have for a game that helped people experience ecosystem collapse?" Kaito leaned forward. "It would be of interest. As you know, my agency creates the appearance of crises before they happen. But our work is restricted in that we cannot cause actual harm to people or ecosystems, especially not irreversible harm. Also, we are unable to execute events that are complex or large scale, so they are typically single issue exercises. Ah, yes, Adams grinned. I believe the TIA was responsible for turning Los Angeles' air pink some years ago. The corners of Kaito's mouth turned upwards. A simple additive to the city's fuel supplies. Harmless, but effective in raising awareness of otherwise invisible pollution. That TIA mission had been a success. The pink haze that lingered over the City of Angels for days was followed by public outcry and a shift in policy and investment to cleaner energy sources and high-quality comprehensive transit networks. For the last 2 years, we've been working on a prototype and it is almost ready for testing, said Adams. What exactly is this project? A deep immersion simulator of future scenarios for humanity's existence on Earth, developed through harnessing various scientific and military capabilities. So, it is like a virtual reality experience. Adams nodded. In the same way that pilots train in simulators to prepare them for real-world emergencies, this simulator can prepare people to respond now to the long emergency of a future yet to arrive. But it is much more sophisticated. Participants will believe they are truly there and experiencing it, and oblivious to the fact that they are actually having a VR experience. Adams reached for the pot hanging over the fire and poured himself and Kaito another cup of tea. How does it work? Asked Kaito. On entering the virtual simulation world, participants can experience, through their senses, what it would be like to live in a world drastically altered by climate change and ecosystem collapse. It connects the cognitive, or what we understand as the intellect, with our emotional response to what we sense and feel. The possibilities began to dawn on Kaito as he listened to Adams. In effect, it is a time machine that allows people to experience the future. Kaito pondered this information. This is a game, a simulator, observed Kaito. Why is it necessary to meet so remotely, so secretly with... He jerked his head in the direction Kerr had gone. Because this is far more than a game. Once we get a working prototype, it will have profound consequences, and certain interests who do not want it to become operational will take any action necessary to stop it. Aha, Kaito thought. He now suspected the American might have links to the intelligence community. Where is this prototype? Inquired Kaito. It is in the Northern Hemisphere in the Arctic, said Adams evasively, apparently waiting for Kaito's reaction before revealing more. Kaito nodded. I will, of course, need more details, but I think we can do business, Mr. Adams. The American extended his hand, but before Kaito could shake it, there was a loud crack outside. A flowering red stain appeared on the window of the farmhouse. Through the frost-crusted glass, they saw Kerr's body drop to the ground. Both men sprang to their feet. Adams held a finger to his lips and motioned for Kaito to move to the far side of the room, closest to where the black four-wheel drive was parked. Though he was wearing boots, Adams somehow managed to not make a sound while crossing the wooden floor. The men crept towards the car, Kaito silently gathering his shoes on the way. Adams produced a revolver from under his coat, cocked it and held it aloft. He turned the door handle cautiously, and the two men bolted from the farmhouse. A white-clad figure emerged from the snow swirl and levelled a gun at Kaito. But before the figure could pull the trigger, Adams had already fired with deadly accuracy. The body slumped to the ground, leaving a crimson streak as it sank into the soft snow. Kaito stared in shock. He was a strategist and an analyst who spent most of his time directing operations from an office. He had never been close to the sharp end of fieldwork like this. Quick, in case there are others, Adams urged, motioning to the car. Leaping into the vehicle, they slammed the doors shut as Adams gunned the engine and they began moving. The black four-wheel drive sped along the valley road, faster than it was safe to drive on the snow and ice. Kaito eyed Adams sideways as the American negotiated the terrain, his eyes darting to the rear vision mirror, to the road ahead, and back again. Which agency? Adams seemed to not want to answer, but eventually he said, US State Department, counter-terrorism. And there is something more you want from me than a partnership to develop a simulator, is there not? Adams glanced at Kaito. The Saturnian diamond you have in your possession. Kaito's eyes closed. How do you know about that? I was working at NASA as part of the Kronos 6 mission ground crew at the time when the diamonds were stolen. One of your agents, on your instruction, carried out that theft. I've been tracking those diamonds ever since. There's a chance the missing ones are doing the rounds of the international black market for rare gems, and while they are considered merely precious stones, the situation is safe. But they are still on the loose. We cannot risk their true nature and power being discovered. I agree. That's why I ordered the diamonds stolen and decided to lock them away until I could find out how to destroy them. As far as I'm aware, there is no material or energy source on planet Earth strong enough to do so. However, I only have one of the diamonds. The others went missing, and I'm not sure if they did before or after the mission I ordered. I strongly suspect my agent lied to me and sold them, said Kaito. I'll continue to track the missing gems, but for the simulator, one is all we need. Where is it? Kaito was silent. How do I know I can trust you to just give you a valuable artifact I've sought to protect the world from? Because our mission is aligned? Because I've not yet turned you in to the US authorities and I have evidence to do so, said Adams pointedly. So, blackmail. Think of it more as a mutual favour. Kaito realised if he wanted to avoid jail and keep his job, indeed his life's purpose, he didn't have much of a choice other than to comply, and the intended use of the diamond was aligned with his own work. It is in a Swiss bank deposit box. If I go to retrieve it and take it to Norway, my absence will be noticed. I will give you the instructions and authority to do so, said Kaito. Good. I'm leaving on a flight out of Osaka in a few hours. The black four-wheel drive sped deeper into the blizzard and on through the night.